They got our guy, our spy pilot. They've got their spy. We want you to negotiate the swap.
I'm an insurance lawyer.
Are you good at what you do?
This will be a first for the both of us.
You should be careful.
Do you know how people will look at us? The family of a man trying to free a traitor?
Every person matters.
Why aren't we hanging him? He's a spy!
We need to know what the Russian is telling you.
We're not having this conversation.
Don't go Boy Scout on me. We don't have a rule book here.
We call it the Constitution, and that's what makes us Americans. Where do they want this negotiation?
East Berlin.
People in my country consider this an act of war.
The next mistake our governments make could be the last one.
Standing there like that, you remind me of a man when I was young. Our house was overrun by border guards. And this man, my father's friend, he was beaten. Every time they hit him, he stood back up again. They hit him harder. Still, he got back to his feet. I think because of this, they let him live.
And I remind you of him?
Standing man. Standing man.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
So nice to see you. Amy, thank you for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me.
We are in the presence of one of the great American actresses. I'm sorry, I'm going to kiss your ass a little bit. I love your work, Amy.
Thank you.
I am so excited to get the chance to talk to you. First off, you know, I immediately went to the green room and did my, what's it like working with Spielberg? He's amazing. But let's do that here too. What is it like working with Steven Spielberg?
Yeah.
Is it a dream?
Yeah, it's a dream. I mean, you know, this is, I've been telling my friends, they're like, oh, Bridge of Spies? Yeah, no, it's a proper Spielberg film. You won't be disappointed. I mean, you know, there's great themes. There's great swelling of music. There's great heroes.
It's impeccably directed and designed and just beautiful.
I was telling a story in the green room right before. Like so much can be designed, but Steven really relies on collaboration and, you know, ask the actors, well, what are you bringing? What do we have? And one of my first days on set, we're exiting the courtroom, I think you saw in the trailer, and all the flash bulbs of the old photography popping off. And Steven, he got so excited. He looked like this 8-year-old boy making films in his backyard. And he's like, they went to clean up all the flash bulbs. He's like, no, leave it. And he said, bring me a camera. And he puts it down on the ground. And he lays down, on, you know, full body on the ground. And he's like, okay, let's get a shot now of everyone walking out over this broken glass. And you know, he's still just endlessly curious as he's making his films and still asking questions on the actual day of like, what else can we do? What else can we bring to this? So he's certainly not a director who sits back and says, I'm Steven Spielberg, I know how to do this. You know, like, you know.
Somebody else will do this for me.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there is so much. He's one of the few directors where he's a household name, so there's myth around him. Were you surprised to see that he was so not just collaborative, but fluid on set as well, that it wasn't just sort of perfectly designed beforehand, that you were sort of doing storyboards?
I had a quick experience. I met him on War of the Worlds, and I was there for a couple of days. I was surprised he knew my name, you know, and one of those parts. But that's the thing about Steven, like, detail matters to him, so he's giving the actors who have 2 lines or the stars of his film almost equal time, if possible, or makes you feel that he's giving you equal time because your small detail in this film matters to his greater, bigger picture, and you feel like you are an equal, and that just uplifts you, makes you feel important to be there.
Talk about your character a little bit. You're Tom Hanks's wife in the film, and he's defending this Cold War spy, right?
Right. So a Tom Hanks character based on the real man, James B. Donovan, insurance lawyer from Brooklyn, takes on this highly unpopular job to defend America's #1 enemy at the time, a captured Russian spy on the brink of the Cold War. To defend the enemy is a big deal. And Mary Donovan is she's a college-educated, Brooklyn-born mother of 3 who has a bit of moxie, but she she is like the rest of America, living under this blanket of fear that, you know, how you're going to wreak havoc in our home if you defend this man. And she's, you know, somewhat right. Like, the family was threatened, and but yet she knows the man she married, that he stands for something greater. So there must be a greater good that he's after, which he is in the film.
Absolutely. And so you're doing scenes with Tom Hanks. Have you worked with Tom Hanks before?
Ever so briefly, and I don't know if he remembers this. I was on a TV sitcom 100 years ago called The Naked Truth, and the creator of that show created Bosom Buddies. So Tom came as a favor to do an episode one day with Rip Taylor. So it was a very odd combo of people, but Tom came in and did a cameo, but I didn't remind him of that.
You didn't remind him of that?
No.
You didn't do Tom, by the way, about 20 years ago we did a little scene together.
I figure if you have to remind someone, it's probably not a good thing.
So you sit down with Tom Hanks. What's it like working with him? And I have to say, one of the things that I loved about this film is that it's very funny. Like, I don't think that comes across, but it's written by the Coen Brothers, and there's great zingers throughout it. And there's your first scene with Tom at the dinner table is a very funny scene.
Well, yeah, Mary's not having any of it, you know. I mean, they're fighting over. He's saying, you know, I don't know if I've taken the case or not, but she's, you know, she knows him, so she knows his tricks. She knows that he's rehearsing his, you know, defense argument on her. But yeah, I mean, the Coen Brothers, they did a polish on Mark Sharman's script, and it's just, there's great Coen Brothers moments. I mean, when I first sat down and read the script, it's such a page turner. I mean, the language starts right away, and they trust the audience enough to, you know, you'll catch up with us. If you're trying to figure out who's who right now, we know you're smart enough to catch up to us.
Yeah, absolutely. The first scene that Hanks has in the film, where they're going over the five things, one thing. I love that scene. It was you could feel writers crafting that scene.
And there's a nice theme of numbers in here. You know, he talks about as an insurance lawyer defending one guy versus 5 claims, and then later on in the film, he's negotiating not one for one. You know, a Russian spy for an American spy exchange. He's like, no, I'm going to take 2 for 1. And you see that theme throughout the film, which is really fun.
Now, were you when you first started? Were you primarily a stage actress, and you made the transition to film and television, or were you all sort of gung ho to do both right away?
I was gung ho to do anything. My first job out of high school happened to be a play, and then my second job happened to be a play, and my third happened to be a play. So I guess I started as being a theater actress, which I'm glad for, because for one, you know, there's no record of a play. It's only like, you know, you're like, oh, you didn't see it? Oh, I was so good. You missed that. Like, there's a couple of...
It's not like starting off doing slasher movies where there's like a record of these...
You can learn on your feet in, you know, in either regional theater, or I did some national tours and then off-Broadway and then eventually Broadway. But I'm glad I figured things out where no one could play the tape back.
Does theater, I'm always curious about this, does having a theater background or sort of getting on your feet doing theater help you on a film set? Does it make you a little bit different, like you're ready for the first take a little bit more than some actors maybe?
Well, I guess for me, I can only answer for myself that it does make me, I mean, I come from a thing of how do I service the script, not how can this film service me. You know, I grew up, I was taught the play is the thing, so you serve those words. And so I apply the way I work in theater to this too. Like, I will come prepared. I will know my character. Of course, I'll have questions on the day. Nothing is set in stone, but I will do as much homework as possible before I arrive. I know Mark Rylance, who is phenomenal in this film. He plays Rudolph Abel. He's
amazing.
Amazing. He's a 3-time Tony winner. He's an extraordinary, probably hands down one of the best theater actors we have. And he too, you talk about that, like it's just, you do what's written and let that then add on to that if necessary.
Do you improvise at all, or you very much like to do what's written? I mean, you did The Office.
Both. I mean, yeah, it depends like what's called for. Like The Office, actually, people don't know this, but it was very sharply written, and they expected you to stay to that. And we would do like 4 takes and then Steve would go off a bit, and that was permission for everyone else to follow. But only till Steve went, then you would go.
Right. So you came to sort of major prominence with Gone, Baby Gone, right? You're nominated for an Academy Award. That's the first time, I guess you could say, Would you say that you became famous?
No, I would say famous. I don't know what that means, really. I mean, I know what it means when I see tabloids, but I never had that.
Oh, I don't mean that kind of fame.
I would say like career shifted. I would say, and it just brought me to the attention of better scripts, better directors, or other great directors, I should say, because I think Ben is a great director. So that was definitely a game changer for me.
What was getting that role like? Did you have a long audition process? Did he know of your work?
Ben didn't. Apparently he even had someone in mind already, and my agent, who I was newly working with, kind of pushed and said, no, see her. And so I went in, and it was actually, I don't know, somehow I was able to connect to that woman. I don't know why. I don't know if I should.
No, I don't
but
think
I feel like I knew versions of her, either growing up in Queens or having spent some time in Boston, Vermont area as a kid. And I read for him, and then Ben asked me where in Boston did I come from. And I said, I'm not from Boston. So he was pissed. He's like, I've never been fooled before. So he asked me to be in his film then.
What was your take on nailing the Boston accent?
Well, a huge thing is having tax breaks. Thank God that film was able to film in Boston, because in between every single take, I sat next to the crew, the Teamsters, and I had that sound in my ear. We shot on location in Dorchester, where the character was from, and that was the saving grace for me, that, I didn't just sound like I parked my car in Harvard Yard, but it was like,
Teamsters,
I wasn't just wicked.
I feel like that's the type of role where Teamsters would sort of give you, like, not notes, but Teamsters would be like, you're really good, you know that? Like, they would notice how good somebody is being,
Some of the extras were complimenting my fashion choice. So I knew I was in the right world.
So when you were nominated after that, when the film came out and you were nominated, what was that like?
Oh, it's kind of your wildest dreams and nightmares all in once. It's like, it's thrilling. It's an honor. You're grateful for being invited to the big table, as someone might say. But it's overwhelming. It's even when people are only nice to you, it's really overwhelming. So it's a lot to take in. You
need a couple to be mean. You can't just have people only nice to you.
Yeah.
There has to be a couple people telling you.
One of my favorite things, I was staying at a really fancy hotel for a month in LA, and they're great. And every day, hello, Miss Ryan, welcome back, Miss Ryan. Oh, I love your dress, Miss Ryan. How was the party tonight, Miss Ryan? And the day that after the ceremony, and I was waiting for my car to go back to New York, and I didn't have an Oscar in my hand. I swear to God, the valet, he said, is something wrong? I said, I'm waiting for my car, I don't see it. He goes, okay, let me help you. He goes, what's the name? I was like, oh, get me to JFK right now. I was like, oh my God, this place is crazy. I was like, it's been one day. One day. Oh my God.
The head of the hotel was like, just pretend like you don't know her.
We don't know her. We don't know her anymore.
But was that, I mean, I imagine that would help a little bit too, in terms of like, okay, well, I'm an actor. Like, my job is to act. My job is to not collect accolades. And like, I'm going to go back and do the work.
I always knew I'd stay in New York. And I mean, New York is the best acting class I can ever take, to be a New Yorker, to ride the subways and to have that anonymity to do so. I mean, constantly pick and select and choose and rob from people, their tics and their motions and the way they talk. I mean, that's what I was taught to do. So if that was ever taken away from me, I don't know what I would do.
Yeah, you don't get any of that really in LA.
I think so. Maybe. Some places you might.
So do you still do a lot of theater these days?
I haven't in a while. The last play I did was a play called Detroit by Lisa D'Amour at Playwrights Horizons, and I might do one next year. I feel like it's a good thing to keep exercising that muscle.
Is it tougher to do a play schedule-wise than it is to do a movie? You have a young daughter, right?
Yeah, it can be hard with having a young kid at home, because they're always up at 6:30 ready to go, and you're only getting home at 11:30 at night, and you're amped up. There's so much adrenaline that a play can produce, but But, you know, I try to remind myself it's not digging ditches. That's a hard job to get up for in the morning. So
now, working with Spielberg, working with Tom Hanks, are you at this point kind of, you know, checking the boxes?
my bucket list box. Well, my list, and then I go, but I want to do that again. So he goes back on the list. No one gets crossed off the list.
Do you tell Spielberg that when you're done shooting on your wrap day, you're like, thank you so much.
See you again.
Come back, bring me back, right? Next movie, please?
Yeah, that would be, I didn't have the balls to say that, but yeah. But the want is there for sure.
Did you, after doing Gone Baby Gone and sort of, like you said, getting a seat at the big table, does that help prepare you for doing a movie with someone like Steven Spielberg, doing a movie with Tom Hanks, sort of prepare you for interacting with them, acting with them, sort of getting any intimidation out of the way?
Well, it's easier when, it's easier to work with big stars, big directors, because you have something to do. I think when you meet a celebrity and you're at a party, I mean, no one knows what to do at a party really anyway, even if there aren't celebrities there. So it's when you have a task and you're called upon to do something that you actually, you're like, okay, I know what I'm doing here. That makes it easier. But it's,
you don't have to mingle
it's
and make awkward
in between
conversation.
cuts. It's like, oh no, what do we do? What do we talk about? But
so I loved you in that movie a couple years ago, I guess.
You want to meet the person and not the personality. I think that's a good thing, a rule to keep in mind when you're encountering such giants.
The character in this movie, as you said, based on a real-life character, did you do any research into this character at all?
I was out to dinner with an old friend of mine, and he's like, oh, what are you doing next? I said, I'm going to do this Spielberg movie about James Donovan. Do you know who that is? And his face lit up. He said, yeah, my father worked with him. He helped free some of the prisoners during Bay of Pigs. I was like, oh, my God. What luck for me. I was like, does your mother remember Mary Donovan? Did they ever? And he put me in touch with the granddaughter who he was still friends with. They grew up together, and she handed over just volumes of photographs, their wedding album, vacation photos. She told me everything, you know, where she went to school, their address, where they lived, you know, like all this intimate detail that, you know, helped. It's why I have glasses on in the film. The real Mary Donovan was blind as a bat. So it's a great wedding photo of her with these giant glasses, you know. And in all the photos, that's one thing I took. She was so enamored of James. Every photo, she's just looking up and at him, not to the camera, even like for family photos. She's just like, she's nuts for this man. And so it was just a great treasure to have in my back pocket for this film.
Is that the thing that you sort of mainly took from the research, was just how enamored she was with this man in terms of like your performance and what you
but
would
also his granddaughter shared with me, you know, she's like, my grandmother came from, you know, a really well-educated family, and her father was accomplished. Like there was a lot of accomplished men around her, but she was smart, and she spoke up. She wasn't just a quiet, you know, housewife, and she had strong opinions too. And you know, it was just those little tidbits here and there that just helped. And you know, simply you could say, well, you know, did she have a Brooklyn accent? She's like, no. Okay, well, good. We'll go from there. Or just little tiny details. It all helps.
When you got this stuff, you got this photo album, all of this stuff. Did you show it to Tom? Were you like, look what I got?
Yeah, I did. I emailed it to the hair and makeup department right away, which they couldn't believe, you know, having this was such, and then all the other characters in it as well, the children, and so it was just a great resource. Otherwise, you're just kind of pulling from Life magazine and what did they look like and what were their clothes like, and I was like, well, here they are, you know. So
you must have been Spielberg's favorite. Like you must have. Annie brought us a photo album of the people in the movie. This is crazy.
It was nice to share it with everyone.
I think we have some time for audience Q&A. Do we have some questions in the audience?
Is it me?
Yeah, who's going first here?
Oh, I'm
okay,
sorry.
go
I
ahead.
thought somebody behind me. Hi again.
Hi.
My question is, I know you met the children before the premiere. Have you spoken to them or the granddaughter after to ask their opinion of your portrayal or anyone else's portrayal? Did they think you were their mother? Or?
Well, when we met them, they saw the film twice actually, and that was before we did press the other day where I saw you. Yeah, they were very proud, and they thought, obviously, you know, Tom and I don't look anything like the real people, but they said the essence was there, and the integrity of these people, and they were really over the moon with the whole movie. And this is something, you know. We also learned that the family years ago, Gregory Peck had tried to option the story and make it a movie, but I think it was too close to the time in history, so the studio never went for it. But they were so happy to, you know, have this movie finally told, the story finally told.
Next question.
Hi, Amy.
Hi.
Thank you for being here, of course.
Thank you.
So, obviously, this delves into the Cold War. Did you have a ton of interest in that period of time, or was this like a great learning experience for you about that period of time, and what were some fun things that, not necessarily fun, but interesting things that you learned from it?
Well, yeah, I know of the Cold War just from being a student in school, but learning about it. But you know, I would ask my mother about it, you know, and she remembers like the duck and cover movies, the films that they would show, which we have a quick, you know, there's a scene in the movie, and you just realize how absurd it is to show these small children, how perverse it is, like in this happy little cartoon. Here's a nuclear holocaust, and get under your desk, kids. You know, and I mean, I think fear is a powerful tool, and obviously that was a time when the country was living in fear and not making good decisions or letting fear override judgment and ethics. And I think, you know, certainly living in New York, anyone who's been here, you know, 10 years ago will understand what it is to live in fear and think maybe we should just re-elect that mayor. We should just keep him. And then you're like, wait a minute, that's a terrible decision. What were we thinking? No, term limits, keep them. You know, like the decisions you make out of fear. And, you know, and I hope...
8 years of Bush.
Yeah. Thank God it's only 8. What if it was 12? You know, like, but let's, you know, so if we can have the wherewithal and foresight like someone like James B. Donovan had to keep a cool head and keep playing by this lovely rule book called the Constitution, and not let fear be the ruler of our decisions. That's what I take with it. That's what I think about it.
Absolutely. Next question.
Hello. You spoke a little bit about having the photo album to help your research. What other kinds of research did you do for your character?
We had such a brilliant costume designer who I worked with on Capote, and it's so laid out for you, so much of it, and even, you know, our set decoration, you don't have to rely much on your imagination because there it is, and they're putting you in it as if, and it was made for me, the costume's made for me, and you know, simply your body changes. You realize, like, well, you can't hug someone around the neck in late 1950s because the seams don't reach, the fabrics aren't stretchy, they're not, you know, so your body just naturally changes, and whether you thought of that or not, you're just suddenly there you are in it and in the little shoes, and the hems are tighter, so you're not walking as fast as I know we ladies like to haul in New York City today. You wouldn't have been able to do that. And so really that homework was done for me by the brilliant design team.
Next question.
Hi. Were there any cool or unique things you learned about like neighborhoods in Brooklyn or any other part of New York from the movie?
You're a New York kid yourself, right?
I'm a New York kid, so
yeah.
I loved reading books, like, you know, like The Alienist or anything that was like old New York when I was younger, like going back in time. And I remember there's one book, Time and Again, where Jack Finney was like, oh, you can still walk down the street, and if you just block out that mailbox or like squint your eye and take out that tower, that's exactly what New York looked like. And I used to play that game, you know, when I was younger, walking down different neighborhoods. And I mean, I again, the production team, I think they did an incredible job transforming Dumbo. You wouldn't believe that a glass tower was next to some of the streets there. And then we filmed a lot out in Ditmas Park, which I think still looks like it had.
Well, South, I feel like South
architecture.
Brooklyn, Ditmas, Carroll Gardens, like around there, a little, maybe not Carroll Gardens so much anymore, but Gowanus, Ditmas
Yeah.
around there still has a little bit of a vibe.
Yeah, for sure.
You
And
can do the thing that you're talking about.
yeah, you just like take that out and edit it out with your eyes as you walk down the street. But it doesn't, I mean, it is, we did film on locations. It doesn't look like some, back lot at Fox and on Pico Boulevard.
No, not at all. Like I can't say enough. The movie is impeccably designed. It's one of the most beautiful, well-directed period pieces I've ever seen.
Yeah,
it's
and they
gorgeous.
rebuilt the Berlin Wall. It's quite chilling to see.
They built it on camera actually too. Like they were building it.
Yeah.
Next question. Oh, I think. Do you have any more questions? I think it's time to wrap it up. Oh wait, one more. Let's go right here.
So, Amy, in terms of preparing and developing the character, how does this compare to some of the other roles? Did you have more time here than you have had in other roles? And what did you do to comparatively research those roles to this role? I know you mentioned some things with some of the earlier films, but overall.
I had a few weeks before I started this film, and again, most of the preparation was with costume department, and which was such a process as they built this beautiful wardrobe. I was also doing another film at the same time, a film called Louder Than Bombs, Joachim Trier's film. So it was very strange. That was a modern day story, but to go back and forth between two parts was kind of strange. But in this film, I'm wearing a wig, which is designed by my daughter's actual hair color. So I feel like I can hide into, that world. Literally, they would transform my look, and then the other one was modern day. So it's just, I don't know, keeping the world separate. And again, like I work from the script. I feel like it's on the page. There's not much I had to add to a Coen Brothers script or fill in the blanks of Steven Spielberg's direction. Like I've been on other maybe more raw independent films, like first-time directors, where you had to do a bit more filling in the blanks, but certainly not in this world. This was quite luxurious in that way.
Absolutely. Amy, the film comes out October 16th, right?
Yes.
And it's a Steven Spielberg movie with Amy Ryan. You guys are going to see this, right? I mean, I don't have to say anything. Amy, thank you so much.